Hi there, Chris Dahlke with you. This is the Müller-Rusch String Method for Violin, Book 1, Lesson 20, numbers 115 through to 121. So on this page, we are learning a new time signature, 3/4 time, and this poses a problem, and that is we have an odd number of notes in each bar. So we may need to use a different concept for our bowing than we've been using for the rest of the book. What I teach my students is, up until this point, they can use what I like to say is a 1-to-1 ratio. So a quarter note gets a quarter of a bow, a half note gets a half a bow. And if you follow the bowing, everything normally works out. Once we hit 3/4 time, that very often does not occur anymore, the idea of it working out and having enough bow to do everything, because we're dealing with odd numbers. So a very important concept for students to understand is the idea that there are three forces at work with your bow: length, weight, and speed. I call them the bow factors. If we can adjust those, then we should be able to manipulate our bow in any way we like while still having good sound. This is very important concept for students to understand and to master. And we're going to encounter that as we go through this page and subsequent pages whenever 3/4 pops up. So we may need to, in some cases, change our bow speed and length and weight in order to have enough bow to maintain all the way through each exercise. Also, at this point in the book, they are going to give you randomly any of the three key signatures that we have already learned. D major, which was the first one we learned, G major, which only has one sharp, and C major, which has no sharps. So you must get into the habit of looking at the beginning of each exercise to see which key signature you are using, whether it is D major with two sharps, G major with one, or C major with none. And then you must adjust your second fingers accordingly across your instrument. It is also a very important concept for students to remember as they're looking at any music and sight reading anything. 115. "116. This is introducing dotted half notes. A regular half note gets 2 counts. A dotted half note gets 3. Why? The dot attached to the note is worth 1/2 of the value of that note. So if a half note gets 2 beats, divided in half, that is 1 aside. So the dot then is worth 1 extra beat. Therefore, a dotted half note gets 3 beats. This exercise, 116, is a D major scale using dotted half notes. Make sure you give them lots of bow, and that way you'll have the best chance of making good sound. "117. This is a C major scale using a rhythm pattern. On this one, because we have half notes and quarter notes, you'll notice that the division in the bar is uneven. This is what I was talking about at the beginning of the video. We're going to have to use slow bows on the half notes so that we don't use a lot of bow, and a faster up bow on the quarter notes. That way we hopefully get back to where we started from, and we recycle the amount of bow we're using correctly so that we don't run out of bow. If you don't do this, you will find you go further and further out, and suddenly you have no bow in order to do the rest of the exercise. So this is an important concept. So please watch carefully as I bow slow on my half notes and quicker on the quarter notes, and that way recycle the amount of bow I'm using correctly to get through the entire exercise. And if possible, on those quick up bows, try not to accent those quarter notes. We want them to have the same tone quality as the half notes. 118, similar things are happening here with the slurs. So we must bow slower on the 2 quarter note slurs in order to not use a whole lot of bow, and a faster 3rd quarter note. So get back to where we started from. $119. Still have to pay attention to those slurs. $120, a French song. This is in D major. So we have both sharps. That means a high 2 on the A and D strings. A side note on that exercise, the bar before letter C, I believe there's a misprint. There was supposed to be a quarter rest to fit the pattern of the rest of the exercise, or they forgot the dot on the half note. Either way, that's a misprint, and we need to have a 3rd beat in that bar. So you can choose whether you use a dotted quarter note or a quarter rest, but that is definitely a misprint. 121, Betsy from Pike. This has an upbeat, so make sure that you start a little ways out in your bow so you have enough bow for that note. And again, if you were paying attention, you'll notice on the bars where I have slurs or a half note followed by a quarter note, I am definitely paying attention to my bow speed, weight, and length, and making sure that I'm not using a lot. And then on the quarter note that follows, I'm going back as quickly as I can to the spot that I started so that I'm recycling my bow correctly.